Hello everybody, welcome back to What If Deku Was the Portal Master, and this is going to be part 7. Before I begin, I would like to announce that I have a Discord server. Links will be in the descriptions down below. You will be able to make suggestions on what ifs that I can do, or on what ifs that I'm currently doing. If you suggest a what if and I like it enough, I will ask you to help write it. Whether you want to or not is up to you. Anyways, let's get right into the what if. So when we last left off, Deku, Chop Chop, Kirishima, and All Might discussed about the fact that Mina knows that they're training on Deku Beach when no one is supposed to know, and they decided that they'd let Mina come down and train with them. Also, Deku had added Trap Shadow to the Book of Skylanders, and he and Trap Shadow had found a Skylanders camp. They are currently inside of it. So, let's head straight to the what if. Now, I'm going to say that 2 hours have passed since the last part. You know, Deku and Trap Shadow, they're talking, you know. Deku had made the Trap Shadow card, because he can't have the cards inside of Skylands, it's just he can't use them inside of Skylands. Hopefully that makes sense. But, you know, they were checked up on by Trigger Happy every now and then. And, this time, when someone enters the tent, which is Trigger Happy walks up to them and says, I've talked with the other Skylanders. They would like to speak with you personally. I do not know why it took so long to come to that decision. Deku says it's alright. You probably have a lot to deal with. And Deku and Trap Shadow, they walk outside the tent, and they see a lineup of Skylanders. The lineup of Skylanders being Funny Bone, who is usually the guard dog, Spitfire, who is one of the other guards of the camp, Lightning Lord, who has assumed the chief role, so he's the main guy in charge. Spy Rise, he's the scout, and Frino, who they send in when there's a giant horde of enemies coming. However, they do not meet another Skylander that is in the camp there, as they want to make sure that Deku is not really being, oh wow. They want to make sure that Deku isn't a Dark Portal Master. So, Spitfire, he approaches Deku, and he says, so, you're the new Portal Master. Sorry, but we still have our suspicions of you being an enemy. Deku says, it's fine. I've heard about Chaos. I'm not sure how he has powers similar to mine. Haven't really been told anything outside of Portal Masters, and I'm still technically learning about Skylands. Spitfire, he pats Deku on the shoulder and says, well, if you're still learning, it means that you are less likely to be evil. I'm not really sure what happened to Chop Chop. Deku tells Spitfire, well, Chop Chop says that he's unaffected, but everyone was affected with something, so it might be something else. Spitfire says, well, okay then. So, you only have, 5 Skylanders in the book? And Deku says, no. 2, actually. Stealth Elf needs to finish her studies, and Gil Grunt is far too paranoid right now. Spitfire chuckles a little, and, Funny Bone, he walks over, he has one of the, I think it's like the bone frisbee type thing, but he has one in his mouth. I'm not sure if I should make Funny Bone, talk or not. Yeah, whether or not, I don't know whether or not I should make Funny Bone talk, so, comment down below whether I should or shouldn't. I'm just gonna avoid interactions between Deku and Funny Bone. Because I'm not sure. And Deku, he grabs the Frisbee, and he's like, so do I throw it? Spitfire nods, and Deku throws it. It doesn't, hit anything. Deku knows how to throw a Frisbee properly. So, and Funny Bone, he goes over and grabs it. I'm gonna say that, Spyrise is entertaining Funny Bone. So, Spitfire says, I'm guessing you're here to take us back to the academy, huh? Deku says, well, not take, but more offer. I'm supposed to bring Skylanders back to the academy, but I'm not gonna force them to come. Spitfire, he kinda understands where Deku's coming from. If Skylanders are, supposed to be rehabilitated, they need to go to the academy of their own free will, right? So Spitfire says, well, it'll take all of us a little while to come to that decision, but, I guess I can show you around. Is that okay, Lightning Rod? Lightning Rod nods, and he says, just don't be too late. And he goes and floats off, to the head tent, the biggest tent. And Deku says, so is that, his tent, or... And Spitfire says, no, that's where we hold all of our meetings and have all the supplies. He stays there a lot, trying to make sure that we can expand without hurting the resident population. He's treating this more like a town in the making than a temporary camp. Huh, Deku replies. He looks over and sees that Trap Shadow isn't with him anymore. And then he kind of looks around, and Spitfire says, don't worry about him. Frino wanted to signal him so that they could talk. Don't know why. But, let me show you around. They go back to near the entrance, but instead of going, directly to it, they take a right. And he says, this is our market. And Deku sees that there's a bunch of Mabu, there's some Greebles, there's just a bunch of species from Skylands. There's trolls, there's fish people, and he says this island used to be inhabited by all of them. The Mabu and the fishmen usually had to join forces to fight off the Greebles, and the trolls only came here every so often. Once the volcano erupted, they all lost their homes as all of the fertile land was on the volcano side. Deku says, huh. So even when you're not in the book, you still choose to be a hero. And Spitfire says, well, it's what I've been doing for a long time now. I can't really drop it because I have something wrong with me. Sure, I don't really go by the title of Skylander anymore. I, have some problems holding back. Deku, he pats Spitfire on the back and says, well, at least you're willing to admit it. And Spitfire, he, takes him through the market. There's a Mabu section, a Fishman section, and when he reaches the troll section, it's kind of industrialized, but he sees a lot of security. So Deku asks, what's with all the security? And Spitfire replies, well, you see, the security is here to make sure that no one from the Fishman and Mabu side goes to the Greeble side, or Greebles to the Fishman and Mabu side. the trolls were willing to act as a buffer. Sure, they may get less visitors, but they have a lot of things that are more expensive than everything else here. The little markets aren't usually in trouble. There are still gangs here, though. As they walk by, they see a troll getting intimidated by a group of greebles. Spitfire, he goes over, he calms things down, gets the greebles to leave with the help of the security before returning to Deku and saying, most of the gangs are made up of greebles, but the ones made up of Mabu are far more terrifying than you think. Deku says, I thought there wasn't supposed to be a single bad bone in the Mabu's body. And Spitfire says, survival does weird things to people. If you can't make enough money, you threaten people to give you money, or just steal it. We've been trying to make sure that people don't enter poverty by doing a 5% total tax. So no matter how much money you have, you're still paying as much tax as a guy with $1,000 to $10,000. And Deku says, so you aren't using gold? And Spitfire says, well, no, we don't have that much gold to begin with. So we took a page from Earth's book. We used paper and made our own version of money. A certain amount of our money can be traded for a certain amount of gold that you can use to buy things from the outside of the camp, which is why we have the path. As Deku and Spitfire enter the Greeble area, Spitfire says, keep your guard up. The Greebles can be very hostile toward newcomers, even if there's a Skylander nearby. So they keep walking, and Spitfire basically explains that they can't really claim independence until they have a certain amount of gold, which means they need to buy things from certain people and sell it to others. But they still need to make it so that people are willing to buy from them. So that's why they have the money system. If there is a visitor, they can choose to give their gold for in-camp money, and then spend that in-camp money on things like food or souvenirs. They aren't a tourist attraction camp, though. Once they leave the market, Deku sees a bunch of tents and some poorly made wooden houses that look stable enough to actually live in and feel safe, but not stable enough to have, something super heavy on, a second floor. So, Spitfire says, this is our main housing district. People in tents are usually seen as higher class than people in houses, as they can have more stuff in there. The size of the tent doesn't matter, Spitfire says. We've been working on making more stable housing. As you can see down there, some of the trolls have managed to make concrete. Deku points down an alleyway and sees that there are trolls that have made concrete and are trying to figure out how to turn it into brick. Deku and Spitfire continue going, and then they reach a very, very large tent. It's not as large as the town hall tent, but it's still pretty large. Spitfire brings him in, and he says, this is our garage. holds all of our vehicles and transport items. Deku looks around and he sees a bunch of carts. He sees some makeshift cars, some makeshift bicycles, some of the usual stuff. And Spitfire brings Deku to a smaller tent inside of that tent. He says, and this is my ride, as he opens it up to reveal the hot rod. And Deku says, so that's where it went. He's not saying, I'm gonna need to take this. He's just saying, so that's where it went. And Spitfire, he understands this. He isn't worried about Deku stealing it. So Spitfire says, this is the supercharger I got when I officially joined the team. And Deku says, oh yeah, you did join the team, didn't you? So why did you stick Stealth Elf with a minigun instead of her daggers? Sorry about that image change. Anyways, Spitfire says, well, her daggers kind of broke at the time, and she was needed on a mission. We had that thing as a little surprise for her, but when she started using it, she actually really liked it. It let her attack more easily, even inside of her pilot's uniform. Normally, she'd have to take it off in order to fight the threat. Because apparently it wasn't mobile enough. I don't know. But she really did like it. Deku, he's just checking out the hot rod. He has been paying attention. So he's like, I never thought of Stealth Elf as a long-range person. And Spitfire says, me neither, but we all change sometimes. Spitfire, he gets Deku to leave the tent, and he says, okay, so this is the only building that we've actually managed to use proper building materials for. And he sees, cement foundation, the walls are half brick, half wood. It's a decent house, definitely better than the housing district. And he asks, what is this? And Spitfire says, well, this is where one particular citizen lives. The citizen is very important because he can make potions. And they enter to see none other than Pop Fizz. And there's a bunch of alchemy stuff there. There's a bunch of boxes of ingredients. There's a full alchemy set. There's a cauldron. There's beakers, and it looks like a lab, like an actual alchemy lab. There's no fancy magical anything. It's just alchemy at its purest. And Pop Fizz says, oh, so there you are. Who's this? And he's working on a potion. And Spitfire says, this is the new Portal Master we've been hearing so much about. And Deku says, hi, Zuko Midoriya. And Pop Fizz responds, Midoriya, huh? I know how to speak your language. It's quite simple once I manage to make my potion. Name's Pop Fizz. As he jumps off of a very, very high table and extends his arm to shake Zuko's hand. Deku reaches his hand out and shakes Pop Fizz's hand. And, he asks, well, should I wash my hands? You looked pretty busy up there. And Fizz says, it's not harmless. All it really does is boost what you can do with a certain element. Well, at least for now. And Deku says, well, what is it supposed to do? And Fizz says, well, when I lost my place in the Book of Skylanders, I became far more focused on alchemy than saving people. But alongside that, my soda factory closed down. So I'm trying to rebuild it. Not here, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. Deku, he kinda gets it. He's like, okay, so how many potions have you made? Papa says, if you're talking about specific types, I've made 20. If you're talking about total number, I've made over 20,000. And Deku says, so is it an equal number for each potion, or do you make one potion more often? And Papa says, actually there are 4 potions I make a lot. There's a health potion, which heals any injury a certain amount. I haven't been actually able to find out what amount that is, but I have figured out a general idea of up to 27 to 25%. My beast potion is probably the one I make the most. And Deku says, I think I get what it does from the name alone. Bob Fizz says, well, good. It's really hard to explain. Spitfire says, wait, you understood that? And Deku's like, well, yeah, I'm smart. If he's talking about beast potion, obviously means that it gives him increased strength and stamina and other such things, with the drawback of either making him dumber or slightly feral. And Bob Fizz says, that's actually a pretty good way of describing it. Anyways, I've also made 2 types of my most basic potion. The fire-based potion, which when I drink it lets me breathe fire, specifically when I'm in my beast mode. And then my, what was it? Electricity or thunder-based potion? I don't know the specifics of it anymore. I've made it so much that I just call it my zap potion. It increases my attack speed when I'm in beast mode, but also shocks anyone who gets hit by it. And Spitfire says, that one's actually been really helpful. We've managed to make something that can completely immobilize anyone who's hit by it. Papa says, yeah. However, it's usually messed up by the spores. Those stuttery little... why do they have to ruin my greatest works? So, they continue talking about Pop Fizz and his potions for about 20 minutes. Now, Pop Fizz is obviously leading the conversation. And eventually it gets to the point where he's just a calmer Mei Hatsume, except for alchemy. And Deku, he actually understands most of what Pop Fizz is saying, so Pop Fizz is like, yes, finally, someone understands this. Yes, you understand chemical formulas and other such things. And Deku, he accidentally helps Pop Fizz with one of the potions he's been working on. Turns out that there was a chemical imbalance. So, Pop Fizz, he really likes Deku now. So, Deku and Spitfire, they are barely able to make it out. And this isn't as scary, this is we need to end the conversation. So once they make it out, they go over to the other side of the camp. And this other side is actually smaller. And he says, welcome to our side. This is the housing for all the Skylanders. And he sees, tents. They're bigger than the rest of the people, but they aren't, so big that it's an obvious, display of power. Right? So, he says, each one of us has a tent. That over there is Funny Bones, as he points down to the very end, and it's the smallest tent of the group. It's still pretty big, but, it's kind of ripped up. And he says, we tried to make it so that Funny Bone didn't rip up the tent material. He kept ripping up the tent material. And Deku's like, oh, does he need a full tent anyways? Like, he is a skeleton. And Spitfire says, no, we mainly have it up for the commodity of it. We also don't want Funny Bone sleeping outside. You know? And he's like, huh, okay. So, the rest of you have the same size tent? And Spitfire's like, yeah. Lightning Rod surprisingly has the third smallest, even though he's the guy in charge. Second smallest goes to Chopper. And Deku says, Chopper? I didn't see him. And Spitfire says, oh yeah, we sometimes forget that he's in the camp. He's out so much, you know, looking for materials that we can use. Metal, other such things. Chopper's a miniature cyborg-esque T-Rex that can shoot rockets. And Deku says, huh, that's actually pretty cool. Spitfire says, I know. So, you know, a few minutes pass, you know, Deku, he and all of the Skylanders in the camp, which, including Chopper, which, is rare. And Lightning Rod says, so, is this the part where you're going to tell us to come back to the academy? And Deku says, no, this is not. It's obviously you guys need resources, and you guys seem to not want to go back to the academy. So, the academy is open for anyone who wants to come back, but until then, we can send you guys resources whenever you need them. You know, Lightning Rod, he kind of respects this decision, as he understands, like, he does want to stay here and help this settlement grow, but at the same time, he understands what Deku needs to do. And Trap Shadow says, yeah, I'll also be able to train anybody you need for soldiers. I have a lot of free time there. And Lightning Rod says, well, thank you. I guess we'll get in contact with you when we need anything. And he says, you don't need to get in contact with me specifically. You can contact Hugo. He should be able to sort everything out. He shakes Lightning Rod's hand, and the group leaves. And I'm sorry for not having interactions with Spy Rise or Pop or Chopper and Funny Bone or like Frino. I did want to include them, but I wasn't sure how to. He will be able to interact with them in the future, because I'm going to say that there will be some in Skylanders training. Not in Skylanders, in Skylands. Ugh. Anyways. So, Deku and Trap Shadow, they return to the camp. Deku asks Trap Shadow, so what were you talking about with Frino? And, Trap Shadow says, we were catching up. Frino's been through a lot, so he needed someone to vent to. And I was one of his best friends. I helped him get a little bit of a better grip over himself. If anyone's gonna come to the academy first, it's probably gonna be him. But even then, he doesn't want to leave the academy without knowing that there will be someone there to replace him. Deku, he nods his head, and they go into the main courtyard. You know, they see Chop Chop and Stealth Elf talking. And I'm gonna say that Deku, he goes out to do some training. you know, and I can't really think of anything else to do for this, so I'm just gonna leave this part off here. So yeah, this is it for part 7 of What If Deku Was the Portal Master. So I am planning on using that camp more, and